One of the worst models that every single mainstream manufacturer has made today. Even some of the best, most reliable brands that we know of today have had some serious flops, and some junk has made it to the market. So I'm here to share that list with you so you can prevent going out making that drastic mistake that so many thousands unfortunately have done. Let's get into it now. Life's too short to drive boring cars. Nissan, right there. That's the car that makes a list of the least reliable. NissanProblems.com actually claims this particular model to be the lowest. 26 out of 26 vehicles. This is ranked the worst of this particular brand. Let's take a quick look and I'll explain. Look, even the fit and finish doesn't look finished off. This looks really gappy right there. Looks very unfinished. This looks very unfinished along the front here. This gap, we've got rubbers that aren't consistent. And clearly the quality control isn't probably where most people would expect it to be on this little Nissan. Of course, you do get some chrome and some other little detail, but it's not the greatest car by any means. The interior looks very basic and simple, but you would expect this in this type of vehicle. There's no sunroof here, and you do have that peel away chrome on the handles. Basic rims that are basically just come right off. You can pop those off. Of course, look around here, you have these basic taillights. Doesn't look like it stands up to with the likes of Hondas and Toyotas. And as I say, this is the Altima. Many issues from engine start troubles there, catalytic converters burning out, of course causing a high temp, and of course naturally that's going to cost you a lot of money. Acceleration problems. A lot of times that comes with catalytic converters that are plugged off and just fueling issues as well. Transmissions, that's the big one. And everybody knows that Nissan struggle with a lot of their transmissions. The CVT, the continuously variable transmissions, have caused Nissan a whole lot of heartache right there. And so that transmission is the common source for a lot of headache and heartbreak. And of course the crankshaft sensor, which is found on the engine there. And if the crank sensor goes, basically crank and no start is what you'll have. So lots of complaints by lots of different customers. And yeah, while there's lots of them sold and there's a few of them still on the road from the older generations, they're not all that well put together. And quite frankly, you'd be better off getting yourself a Toyota Camry or even a Honda Accord. So here's the next one, and it pains me to say this because this is a ruthlessly reliable vehicle. And what we're clearly talking about here is a Honda. A Honda has the bottom of the barrel vehicles, and I do believe this is the one. We're talking about a CR-V, and some would argue that the Passport is actually a lower end vehicle. I personally think because this vehicle, the older version, has the 2.4 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, it is a great vehicle, but the reality is the modern day CR-V actually comes equipped with that turbo 1.5, and we know there's some oil and fuel dilution issues with the latest and greatest CR-V. And as a result of that, I personally would stay away from the CR-V, not from other makes and models, but specifically in the Honda world, maybe look at something else instead. You move into something like this Passport here, which isn't as long and bulky as you get with the Pilot, because the Pilot has the third row. This still only has the standard configuration, but it's a shorter, more attractive vehicle than the Pilot, and it's more substantial than the CR-V. This also comes with the naturally aspirated 3.5 liter V6, makes 280 horsepower, and honestly, I would choose this vehicle in touring format and all-wheel drive of the Passport in the Honda world above a CR-V, which feels a little tinny, hollow. You hear more road noise, and clearly more of a base model. For not a lot more money, you can step up your game and move into something that's a little more substantial. And Chevy, GM, as well as a lot of the upscale brands like Buick, they're all coming from the same place, GM, General Motors. And clearly we have to talk about the worst model in their stable, and that's this little hot rod here. Now, it looks really smart and spiffy, and it definitely has some aggression dialed in there, but it's not a great vehicle. Let's take a closer look. We have little RS badging to light you up, and this is a Chevy, as I mentioned. Look at the aggressive front spoiler and the valence on there. It definitely gives this vehicle a strong stance from the front, but then as you circle around to the side, it starts to look more and more like a mainstream low-level SUV. Plastic cladding sounds a little, you can actually hear it rattle a little bit. Nice mirrors. Of course, you can haul your dumpster project, and naturally, as you circle around to the back, it has this nice overhang, but that's pretty standard for these smaller subcompact sport SUVs. Back seats, lots of room for the little chitlins. Front space, very basic, very bland, and not a lot going on there. If you look around here, you see you do have a set of dual exhaust tips, a great little valence down there, and of course, more badging right there. But this is not the best quality vehicle by any stretch of the imagination when we're talking about Chevy. There's been lots of problems. The front seats and the attachments have found to be loose. Clearly a quality control problem. Equipment failures, you name it. Plastic, fittings, materials, all coming apart at the seams. Road noise, lots of road noise into the cabin, as well as some body shakes has been reported by a lot of unhappy little customers. Sluggish engine, of course, you're putting these small little substandard drivetrains under the hood of these vehicles now, and the failure of the electric brake boost. Of course, this is going to be a problem. I've always worried about the electric brake boost scenarios and when we're going to start seeing issues. Well, Chevy's proved that one out. A bit of a stiff ride associated with this, and even the transmission performance is a little jarring or doesn't necessarily pick up when you want it to. And as well, electric gremlins, climate control. Yeah, more problems there as well. So pretty much top to bottom, odd engine performance, odd transmission performance, electrical problems. These vehicles are at the bottom of the heap, and clearly one that I would say they sort of missed the boat there, Chevy. So the Stellantis products consist of products like the Dodge Ram right over there, and of course we have this Chrysler minivan right here called the Chrysler Pacifica, which is, in my opinion, the worst vehicle that Dodge Chrysler makes today. And some of it has to do with the fact that it looks like a spaceship to begin with, and I feel like it's the rental car special, and it's slightly embarrassing to drive around in. But there's been also others, TIPM-related troubles, electrics, lights, windows, mirrors not working from random time to time. Hard shifting, yes, there's been some wiring harnesses related to the transmission causing shifting related issues, as well as the engine, random stalling, electrics. It's just not that well built a vehicle, and there's lots of troubles associated with it, and insult to injury is just look at that thing. So clearly the Pacifica is one that would rank as my bottom of the barrel for vehicles within the Dodge and Chrysler realm. Ford has a lot of great vehicles, but this is the next one in line. This is the bottom of the barrel. And actually, they're stealing the name. The name Bronco, of course, does represent the full-size Bronco, but this is the Sport. This is the baby version. This is built on more of a Ford Escape or Escape platform. Just basically a redressed, it's like lipstick on a pig. You can put lipstick on there, but it's still a pig. Of course, here we have the Bronco decals on the front. They have their own unique headlights. Of course, simple little road tires. That's an indicator right there. This is not an off-road vehicle like it intended to be. Very basic looking interior, not too much unlike what we're finding in the Escapes. And right there, they have a cute little handle and some running boards on top that allows you to haul your project to the dumpster. And here we see the Bronco Sport on the back. Yeah, there's a trailer hitch, but I'm not sure I'd want to tow too much with that. Even with all this nice cladding along the sides, it does look like it's capable of going off-road. This is not an off-road vehicle. And sadly, there's a whole host of problems already found with these vehicles, from stone chips to fuel leaks, engine issues, as well as the four-wheel drive system is starting to overheat in certain situations. There's also been talk about suspension problems, and brakes are a little underwhelming. So in my opinion, at least even the Ford Escape isn't trying to be something it isn't. It's been around for a while. All they did was essentially rebadge this, steal the name, and try to put a 2.0 on this. But clearly, Ford and the Bronco Sport definitely weren't destined for longevity. And Hyundai's on the list too. Their worst is really bad. But let's just say that the Sonata for many years has been a real problem child. Most complaints pretty much of all the generations and all the models. But if you look at the most recent models, 2018, 2017, the latest and the greatest, and this here is the vehicle that sees the most complaints, most problems, lots of issues. I mean, engine issues, all kinds of electrics. I mean, let's get into that. Body panels falling off. That is one example of the issues. Of course, we do have a basic set of taillights, LED, on this Santa Fe. And of course, it's a Hyundai, as I say, Sport, all-wheel drive, as most of the vehicles, specifically in Canada, are all-wheel drive. You do have a set of interesting little exhaust tips missing, and of course, a great set of rims on here. The interior is quite simple and basic, but it works. That's not the weakness. And of course, a basic set of headlights. That's not the big issue either. As a matter of fact, in a lot of ways, Hyundai and Kia have been knocking out of the park with their styling details, looking a little bit better and crisper than some of the competitors from Honda and Toyota. You don't know necessarily what you're getting because these are chocked with issues. These vehicles, like a lot of Hondas and other vehicles these days, are starting to use soy wiring. So in other words, the rodents like to get in there and just chew away. And if that happens, you can get short circuits, wiring failures, electrics, catastrophes. So that is one issue here. Santa Fe has been known to have engine stalls and just randomly at a most inopportune time. The paint as well has been known to be self-peeling. In other words, it starts to come apart you nick it, get it started, and it starts to want to start peeling away. And on vehicles, unlike this one here, does not necessarily come equipped, but those with the panoramic sunroof have been known to blow apart, and you have glass all over inside the cabin. Not a great scene. As well as the 32 GDI engines, we all know the story there. Rod knocks because of metal particulate making its way through the oil cooling passages within the engine means that often you're going to sustain an engine failure. Could start seeing check engine light, might start to see it rod knock, you might get that noise. It could actually just stall altogether, or the worst case, there have been stories of some of these vehicles starting fire on the roadside, leaving people in a serious problem. So while I openly admit that the latest generation of Hyundais have gotten a little bit better, the jury is out yet on how much better and whether they're going to sustain reliability like some of their competitors. So personally, at this point, if you need an SUV like this, I'd suggest possibly go with a Toyota RAV4, Honda CR-V, or maybe even the Passport. Much better than what we're looking at right here. The worst vehicle from this brand, as we can see, Jeep is part of the Stellantis group, which is Dodge, Ram, of course, and Jeep. And Jeep has a whole conglomeration of different vehicles that are literal disasters, but there's one specific one. The Wranglers aren't all that reliable and they're very expensive. The Grand Wagoneer, welcome to a $100,000 SUV. Grand Cherokee that thinks it's a BMW, but it's not quite punching above that weight class. The Jeep Compass, which is a little disaster on wheels, and they can't even sell this. This car's 3 years old and it's still new old stock. And the Cherokee, like we're looking at here, is so poorly selling that Jeep has literally decided to toss it, and you can no longer find any of these for the next model year. As you can see, very little redeeming value with the Jeep product, but there's one specifically at the bottom of the barrel that's the worst above the worst. What we have here is they're trying to do this fancy little Jeep grille on here, as you can see, and it's a cute little upright boot-shaped kind of unit. It has some fancy paint and dazzles people with these great little tow hooks to haul your buddy out of the mud with. Of course, you have these fake little laser cut wheels, and it's trail rated. I guess it must be good for off-roads, even with these highway grade tires. What we're looking at is the Renegade here. Yeah, it has simple access in and a very simple and Spartan design inside. It does look a little fancy and frivolous, but in most cases, people who end up owning these end up regretting these gracefully because they can't admit that they bought something that looks like somebody got punched in the eyes right there. This is the Trailhawk. Of course, we have a tow hook there. Oh, I definitely wouldn't want to tow anything with this unit. Guaranteed you're going to blow out the gearbox. And they say it's 4x4, but that's part of the issue with some of these vehicles. The reality is it's 2.4 liter 4-cylinder Tiger Shark that's an oil and a gas burner. Causes lots of CO emissions, and it's just not up to the snuff. Automatic transmission, some problems with the electrics related to that, and electrical gremlins galore. We talk about tip-em. We know all about that game with the Chrysler Stellantis Jeep products. It's nothing new. So this vehicle is not the best in terms of reliability, not the best in terms of looks, and certainly has the least amount of punch that you would expect from a Jeep. So one of the manufacturers, Kia, like we see right here, has a model that truly is bottom of the barrel in most regards. I mean, clearly from a design element perspective, not a lot of people love them. Some people thought they were sort of cute, but at the end of the day, they were just plain awkward. But it's not really even about the looks, because that's all subjective. They do have these awkward looking vertical taillights that you see right there, and of course that little single handle, and this is an earlier model with the GDI, which is not a good setup. Of course, you have little flares and little bumper guards there, basic mirrors, not even a sunroof on top. The interior is very basic looking, and although it holds up well, it doesn't have a lot of excitement. So there's not a lot of redeeming value in the style of it. But the problem isn't there, it's under the hood. Yeah, there's been recalls related to the engine, making strange noises, knocking, even more importantly, stalling at the most inopportune times. And this goes back to even a couple of years ago, there's recalls associated with these randomly stalling at the drop of a hat. We also can't forget transmission, where there's problems with it bucking and grinding and smoking. There's even smoke sometimes that pours out of there, or that smell of wafting smoke. So transmission issues, as well as steering control issues with these vehicles. So some of the key elements: steering, engine, transmission, seems like a triple threat, right? The Kia Soul, definitely one that made the dumpster in a hurry. And there's the next one on our list. Clearly, even Mazda sometimes makes mistakes here as well. And what we're looking at here is a cute little SUV, electrified. We do have this set of angry looking headlights, has this thick eyebrow, Gorbachev style. Of course, here we have plastic, and we cycle over. This looks really nice. We have this high gloss piano finishing there, this oversized panel on the roof. This vehicle is in fact made for aerodynamics and made for maximum efficiency. We do have your standard Mazda type taillights, as we see right there, and here we have the MX-30. Sadly enough, is a vehicle that Mazda has, after 2 years, decided to not produce this for the US and Canadian marketplaces. This is in fact going away. Yes, in the rest of the globe, it's still going to be carried on as an Sky Active vehicle, and it does have suicide doors, so it's kind of interesting. Even with a cute, slightly Spartan interior that clearly is well made, this wasn't enough to dazzle buyers. People just didn't want this. Mazda didn't quite get it right. The performance is sluggish, the styling is bland, and more importantly, it had brutal range. As an electric vehicle, it should do much better than it does, and people just weren't satisfied with the numbers on paper. The MX-30 is a clear miss, while the rest of Mazda's lineup has smashed it out of the park. Subaru is known to be a very versatile, reliable car manufacturer, and a lot of people love it. They have clearly some of the best all-wheel drive off-road systems anywhere, anytime. Between that and the Quattro by Audi, they clearly have the best off-road prowess for vehicles that aren't necessarily jacked up 8 inches in height. So these vehicles definitely represent some good value in terms of their overall capability, and that's every Subaru pretty much. But let's take a look at one of the examples of a modern day Subaru that I'm not in love with, and I think personally it's the bottom of the barrel, and I'll explain. Let's face it, Subs aren't necessarily the car of choice for Ferrari, Lamborghini owners. It is in fact a car choice for people that love the practical side of driving. Of course, you do have the basic set of headlights there. This one has the big inlet because this car here is a more performance version. Right here we have the WRX badging. The interior is fairly plain Jane, but we do have a manual transmission, which is nice. There's no sunroof here. Basic set of handles along there. But as we cycle around, you'll notice we do have a set of standard taillights, because this is based on the Impreza. Subaru all-wheel drive system is said, but this is the WRX. Yes, you get all the great exhaust tuning going on there and great performance. The problem with especially the earlier EJ series of engines, the 2.5 liters, or even really any WRX or STI engines, is they're run hard. They're flat engines, they tend to break away ringlands, they tend to eat oil, and most Subarus are known for oil burning capabilities. They tend to attract buyers that are prone to actually modifying them. Everybody has a turbo car, they want to modify it, and this car has hot rod written all over it. And as a result, these are the cars I'd probably steer away from. Definitely Subaru WRX, you're going to pay a lot more money for what you really want out of a car in this type of vehicle is just practicality. Why would you buy a car like this that is sort of torn between practical and high performance? There's much better choices. So if you're going to buy a Subaru, there's many great options, Crosstrek, for example, Outback, but this particular vehicle, WRX and STI, I'd probably steer away from. I mean, when car manufacturers have durability and reliability records that destroy all others, then it's hard to find fault with any particular models. But what we're looking at here is a Toyota Corolla. Now, it's ridiculously reliable, safe, and practical, so what's not to love about it? Well, when you start pricing out a modern day Corolla like this, you'll quickly find, go into the showroom, put it up against the base model Camry, and you'll find for a couple $1,000s more, you get what is perceived as twice the car. But what do you get here? Well, you can either get a hybrid setup like this little Corolla, or you can get the base 2-liter strapped together with a continuously variable transmission that makes about 168 horsepower. It's a literal snooze fest. I mean, it's hard not to love a Corolla. It's just a simple car, non-assuming. I mean, of course, here we have some great little detail, nice little updates. That means it's a hybrid right there, as verified right there on the logos. Of course, we cycle down. You do get a set of snap-on wheels as basic. There's no sunroof on there either. The headlights are quite interesting, but in line with all the other Toyota products. It's a cute car. Because of the packaging and the fact that it represents relatively low value, it just seems to be the car that I would not recommend in the Toyota lineup when you have other cars like the Camry to compare it to. And here's the next vehicle, and as you can see right there, this is by the People's Wagon, the People's Car, Volkswagen. And this is a model that I would not recommend. I think this is truly the bottom of the barrel. Everybody's trying to get on the wagon with subcompact SUVs, and this is Volkswagen's effort on that. Now, they do have some great touches. As you can see, some great detail in there, high quality materials throughout, and that's usually what dazzles people. It's the German engineering, and it's usually the surfaces, the touch points that make you feel really nice. Great looking headlights. As you see cycle down, you have rock protection. on this Taos here, right here. And of course, that feels a little cheap. You don't even get a sunroof on this unit, although you do have that dumpster hauling roof rack there. And of course, naturally here you have the typical SUV style rear tailgate assembly and a set of laser cut rims that look amazing. And the interior looks clean, but that's part of the problem here. This thing rides like a lumber wagon, and not a lot of customers have been really happy with the ride quality of these vehicles. Electrical problems are some of this, the quality control, but the big one, stalling. A new vehicle shouldn't be stalling by today's market. As well as the transmission a little rough, and more importantly, fuel leaks. Yeah, a lot of these vehicles actually had to go back to get that sorted out and spend some time at the dealership just trying to get that sorted out because there was a recall and the smell and wafting of fuel and fumes. Clearly a safety concern and not one that I want to fool around with. Therefore, this one here hits the bottom of the barrel for Volkswagen. And with all of that said, check it out right there. That's 2024's best SUVs. You're definitely going to want to see that one. Hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.